Hi, we're Group 3, and I'm Brooke Pepin.
I'm Alicia Knapp.
I'm Ashley Nauer. I'm Brianna Doran.
And I'm Lauren Bates, and our presentation today is on gender differences in human-animal interactions. This study was done by Harold Herzog. He is a professor at Western Carolina University in Cullowhee, North Carolina. He is part of the Department of Psychology at the university. The intent of his research was to document patterns of gender differences across different types of animal-related attitudes, behaviors, and relationships. His goal was also to state the behavioral and cognitive differences between men and women. He based his research on 7 different topics. These topics that we will further explain are attitudes towards the use of an animal, attachment to companion animals, animal abuse, animal hoarding, involvement in protectionism and welfare, recreational hunting, and bestiality. In his research, he studied various age groups. These groups include children, college students, and then just men and women in general.
Another big topic that he talks about in his research paper is the Cohen's d. This measures the effective size. The Cohen's d compares 2 means divided by the average standard deviation, shown in this equation. Effect size that he talks about are the small, medium, and large. The small effect size is 0.2 and can only be seen through studies. The medium effect size is a 0.5 d value. The large is a 0.8 d value, and it's very substantial. This effect can be seen by the naked eye. For an example, that men can be seen every day taller than women, so this is a large effect size. The first topic that Harold Herzog talks about is the attitudes towards the use of animals. Through the study of Keller and Berry in 1987, Harold looked at this study to see that the gender differences vary widely over 9 nature values. The women were found to be more humanistic and moralistic, and at the same time more negativistic. They were more sympathetic towards animal welfare. Men, however, were more for species preservation and habitat conservation. Are men or women more sympathetic towards the use of animals? Women. In the study of Pfeiffer, Shimizu, and Pfeiffer, 15 countries were studied and found that 14 of the 15 found that women were more opposed to animal experimentation. Women were also less supportive for animal research. More men were found to be supportive of animal research in 84% of the studies done. Women were not found to be supportive in any of the studies. The Cohen's d test result for attitudes toward the use of animals. There was no negative d reported. It was found that women were more sympathetic for the use of animals. Also, the medium size effect size was found at a 0.49 number. The second thing that he talks about is the attachment to companion animals. There were fewer investigations done for this study than there were for the animal attitudes towards the animals. There were gender similarities for having pets. There was telephone surveys, and most surveys done found that there was either no difference or small gender differences. The study of children and animal involvement. Melson and Stevens, in 2 separate studies in 2 separate years, found that there was no gender difference in pet involvement of children's lives. The Cohen's d test result for attachment to companion animals was an average of 0.22, leading to a small effect size, which means that there are small female-to-male differences.
The next topic that Herzog mentioned was animal abuse. Some of the problems with gaining these statistics were the lack of reporting of these animal abusing incidents. Also, the definition of animal abuse can be up for interpretation with the wide amount of opinions and definitions. This can be seen in the laws in Ohio. With the different topics such as cruelty to animals and injuring of animals, words like sufficient, wholesome, inhumane, cruel, and maliciously could be up for a wide interpretation of where the line is with abusing animals. With children, a large-scale study in Canada involving children from the ages 12 to 16, 10.2% of boys and 9.1% of girls were reported in abusing animals. Of these boys and girls, many demonstrated antisocial behavior. There was also a non-clinical sample of boys and girls who recorded for 4 boys to 1 girl abusing animals. Children who were reported in abusing animals often demonstrated this antisocial personality trait. More often, this trait can be found in boys. Concerning the mental health and behavior problems, 85% of animal abusing children who were referred to a community mental health center for behavior problems were boys. However, girls with conduct disorders have higher rates of animal cruelty than normal boys. In adults, especially with college students, similar findings were found. In this study, 35% male to 9% females were reported for abusing animals. Also, 69% males and 33% female undergrads reported that they had personally direct exposure to some form of animal cruelty. In older men and women, men vastly outnumber women across most types of abuse. In Massachusetts, between 1975 and 1996, 268 persecutions for animal cruelty happened. Out of these cases, 259 involved men and only 9 involved women, which is a 29-to-1 ratio. Men tend to vastly outnumber women with the violent acts seen in Table 4, with beating, shooting, torture, drowning, fighting, burning, and bestiality. However, in animal abuse cases of neglect and abandonment, women and men are similar in numbers. However, in hoarding, women vastly outnumber men, which Lauren will go into more detail about.
Another main point in Herzog's research was animal hoarding. Animal hoarding is considered a compulsive disorder that some studies say is related to OCD, which is obsessive compulsion disorder. This disorder involves keeping an abnormally large amount of animals without being able to provide basic care for them. While at the same time, these owners believe that they are rescuing the animals and deny that they are incapable of caring for so many animals. There are different reasons why people hoard animals. Studies found that in many cases, the hoarder has suffered from either a traumatic childhood, an illness, death of a significant other, or a disability. According to the U.S. National Library of Medicine and the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, animal hoarders have an intense emotional attachment to the animals in their care. Many times, this is because animal hoarders have the inability to establish human relationships. Because of this, the person turns to animals. The hoarder then can create a bond with the animals, which results in the unconditional love for the animals. The hoarding makes a person feel special, loved, and important. The hoarder's intense emotional attachment to the animals in their care clouds their judgment, and they begin to confuse their love for the animal with the reality of being unable to provide a safe, clean, and healthy living environment. Herzog's research found that between 2/3 and 3/4 of all hoarders are females. Another study done by the Animal Law Defense Fund also found that about 72% of hoarders are females. The Animal Law and Defense Fund found that cats are the most common animal victim to hoarding, and dogs are the second most common. The Animal Law Defense Fund also found that about 100% of hoarders are repeat offenders. The only solution to keep animals out of harm of hoarders is to prevent the hoarders from being able to own animals. This picture is from Animal Planet's show, Confessions Animal Hoarding. This lady lives with over 100 rabbits. As you can see, the living conditions are terrible. The rabbits have taken over her home. If you look at the floor, it is covered in straw, which is used as bedding for the animals. So the animals are urinating and have feces all over her house. If you look on the tables and over on the side over here, there are a few cages, but there are not enough cages to house all of these animals. There's no food, there's no water, so the animals cannot nourish themselves. Her ceiling looks to be falling in, and her fan looks to be about ready to fall in, and there's dust collecting on it due to the lack of maintenance on her home. This lady fits the stereotype of an animal hoarder because when she was asked by the producers about her living condition, she did not see a problem with all of these animals in her house. She believes that she's rescuing them and keeping them from harm, when in reality, she does not have the ability to care for them. In the end, the animals were evacuated from her home and transported to local shelters to be adopted out to other families.
Another aspect of Herzog's study was animal protectionism. Animal protectionism, as defined by Encyclo Online Encyclopedia, can be defined as animal protectionism is a position within animal rights theory that favors incremental change in pursuit of non-human animal interests. The intent of his study was to show the difference between men and women in animal protectionism. This also included children. He evaluated 9 different events. Some of the other researchers did different things for this, and he evaluated 4 March for Animal demonstrations. What he noted from this was that more women than men were participating in this in a 3-to-1 ratio. As you can see from table 3, Herzog actually completed 2 of the surveys here, including the 1990 March for Animals and the 1996 March for Animals. The vast majority of participants were female, ranging anywhere from 68 to about 80%, whereas men participation, as you can see from those numbers, was not as much. Women involvement actually dates to the 19th century. The Victoria Street Society is about 70 to 75% women. It is the most prominent early British animal protection organization, and it is found that women are more attracted to animal protection than other causes. So this shows that it is not a recent phenomenon. For men versus women involvement, women typically are the bulk readers of animal protection magazines or anything that has to do with animal rights. Men usually are the political and philosophical leaders of this movement. As for women, they usually subscribe, or at least they looked at subscribers to the Animal Agenda, which the Animal Agenda is an animal rights magazine in the United States, and more women than men were subscribers, and men were usually the authors and the activists for this magazine. Whereas today, if you look at it, women are now leading, they are becoming more prominent in animal protectionism, whereas men's roles are declining. And because of this, women are becoming more prominent in it. More than half of animal protection organizations are now led by women. Gender involvement varied with goals of the organization. So if an organization was more involved with animal protectionism, you'd see more women involvement. If you saw an organization with conservation attempts, you would often see more men than women involved. One of the societies that they looked at was the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and 85% of its members were women. And usually you'll see a trend, again, if there's an animal rights focus, you will see more women involved. As for children involvement, a lot of children now are attending animal summer camps, and these children are considered super nurturers of our generation. They have an unusually high commitment to animal preservation, welfare, protectionism, animal rights, and usually it's seen in a 4:1 ratio with more girls going than boys. Another important thing to look at is the dissection hotline. A lot of us had to dissect frogs either in high school or middle school for some type of biology class. And I guess there's a hotline now that you can call to voice your concerns about dissection in class and how you feel about it. And 76% of the people that call are usually female, which greatly outnumbers the amount of men that we're calling. As for lifestyle changes, it is viewed that twice as many women than men are willing to make lifestyle changes. Usually those lifestyle changes include change of diet for welfare and ethical reasons. What you'll see today is a lot of changes to go from being a herbivore or an omnivore, not a herbivore, from an omnivore to becoming a vegan or a vegetarian if you're depending on how strict you view animal rights.
Another topic Herzig took note on during this study was recreational hunting. Recreational hunting was divided up into two major sections, big game and small game. For big game, we tend to address animals such as deer, bear, elk, wild hog, and turkey. For small animal, we normally point to rabbit, squirrel, and armadillo. Types of hunting may include bow and arrow or rifle, along with many other techniques. The reasons people hunt can include as a pastime, for food retrieval, and for extermination purposes. In the study, Herzig noted that over 17 million men in the U.S. hunt compared to the 2.6 million women. In another study done by Lauer and Brown in 2000, found that 93% of men in New York were deer hunters compared to women. The conclusion from Herzog's study was that gender difference are particularly pronounced when it comes to recreational hunting. In other words, men participate in hunting much more. Another point that Herzig noted in his study was bestiality. Bestiality is the act of having sexual contact with animals. Although rare in occurrence, Herzog found that men participate in bestiality more than women. Statistically, 8% of males and 3.6% of post-pubescent women have had sexual contact with animals. Females are more likely to express emotional involvement with animal partners than men. The majority of sexual deviations are performed by men, which makes sense considering higher levels of bestiality is seen in the male population. Researchers consistently find men are involved in bestiality. However, most pornographic sites devoted to bestiality show interactions between animals and women to appease the male consumers of the pornography. In our discussion, we found that behavior towards animals varies. As well, gender differences include effect sizes. Gender differences can change as shown by the study. The sexes are more similar than different.
If we look at Table 5 from Herzog's research, this this is a summary of the gender differences in the human and animal interactions. The column on the right is the area, which is all of the areas that we talked about, which we use as research points. In the middle, we have a column that shows the direction, which this means does that area lean towards males or females. And then on the left, we have the effect size, which just as we talked about earlier, he researched small, medium, and large. The last figure from Herzog's research was this bell curve, where the dotted line is for the men and the solid line is for the women. This was the statistics he got from a general survey that he gave out to both men and women. And as you can see, men and women do not really differ. Some answers were similar and other answers were not. But as we stated before, in the end of his research, he found that the genders are more similar than they are different.